Hello everybody, my name is Zen, and I want to talk about No Man's Sky because the Endurance update, I think it's the tipping point for me to make this game a must-play game on a regular basis. And I'm going to talk about that, but I also want to quickly mention that I'm in the middle of moving, so if you notice that my audio is a bit more echoey than usual, and you're a regular to the channel, I apologize for that. If you're new, I'm usually not this echoey. But like I said, I'm in the middle of moving and it's just, there's nothing in my office. It is absolutely empty and very echoey because it's a large room. So with all of that said, let's jump in and talk about this update. What has it added and why do I feel like No Man's Sky right now has reached its tipping point for me as a player? Like where I'm going to consistently jump in and be playing the expeditions on a regular basis. Well, it honestly comes down to a fulfillment of the fantasy that I had when this game was first announced. I personally didn't really jump too hard on the hype train when everything was first announced. And if you look back when all of that happened and the reactions of people who jumped in to play the game at launch, you know, things were underwhelming to say the least. And you know, people got really annoyed with false marketing and stuff like that, and say what you will about it, they released a game that just wasn't quite what people had imagined it to be. And every update that they've added, just quietly updating this game, has made it better and better and better. And this is not the first No Man's Sky video I've done on my channel. It's not the first time I've talked about it, but every single time they add an update, it is fulfilling someone's fantasy that they had for this game originally. You know, maybe it's the previous update that added like settlements where you can straight up like have this cool settlement that you're protecting, kind of like a Western, and you're doing missions for them and helping them out and like building it up and like increasing your reputation with them. And you got this like group of dudes like on an outer rim of like this galaxy, this universe, and you are, you know, trying to protect them. Maybe that was your fantasy. Maybe it was before that. Maybe it was when they added Exocraft and you could start like using like all those like the large vehicles on the ground, or like the underwater stuff, or the mechs, or multiplayer. Like there were so many huge updates to this game that fulfilled a fantasy for people. Personally, for me, mine was, because I'm a huge sci-fi nerd, I really wanted to have my own capital ship. Here's the thing, it's not just sci-fi. I also really love Star Wars. Star Wars is one of my favorite franchises ever, and I'm really into it. In fact, I recently just did a full playthrough of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order leading into the launch of the Obi-Wan series, and both of those things were fantastic. And now I'm doing a full watch through of the Clone Wars, which I've never seen before, and I'm on season 6 out of, was it 7 or 5 out of 7? I'm on the second to last season, whatever that one is, and it's freaking fantastic. Nobody told me that it was as good as it is, and now I'm angry that nobody told me. But the point is, my thoughts when this game was announced was, oh, I really want a capital ship. I really want a massive ship that I can fly around in with a fleet and be able to micromanage that fleet, but also be able to like go out and do my own stuff, like go down onto planets and explore, or go play with my friends and have them join in and check out my capital ship that I've built and customized and everything. Now they added frigates quite a ways back, like large ships that you could jump on and check out and even have and pilot, and well, pilot is a vague term, but you can have and show up into systems and whatnot. That's nothing new. But what they have done with this update is they've made it so you can customize the inside. You can build a base on the inside of these things. You can build custom modules that are only available in these large frigates. And you can also have a crew. You can hire a crew now of NPC dudes that are going to go do stuff for you. You can send them out on missions and they will come back with, you know, various stuff depending on the mission that it is, what kind of class of ship that they are. Like you can have like a science vessel, which is what you start off with in this expedition. If you don't know what expeditions are, I'll talk about that in just a moment. But in this expedition, you start off with like a science vessel or exploration vessel or whatever it may be, and it, you know, you could send it out on missions and do a bunch of cool stuff with that. And this was what I wanted from No Man's Sky when it was announced. So when I first played it and I didn't get that, it's not that I knew how to communicate that that's what I wanted and didn't get, because it was a desire of mine. It was an unspoken, unknown expectation for this game of what I wanted until it was there. And then now that I see that it's in and it's functional and it's great, I'm like, damn, this is a game that I'm going to play a lot of. And I'm going to try to, depending on time, because I'm a very busy person. I don't necessarily have time to just jump in and play games for myself anymore, unless it's work related, which is a little unfortunate. Got to fix that. But that's a whole different can of worms that I'm not opening up on this video. I want to jump in and do these expeditions to gain the cool cosmetic unlocks and whatnot, and even play with people, because multiplayer is totally a thing, and inviting them onto my ships and whatnot is really cool. And I love that kind of stuff. So what are expeditions? Well, if you ever played Diablo 3, I think is a great example with seasons. Basically each season is like a new theme, and you go in and there's a bunch of cosmetic stuff. The base game is still the same. What you're doing is still the same, but they set up a seasonal theme that you go in and you try something new, or it alters the way that certain items work. Or there's just a variety of different things that get added with that. It's the same thing here. With this expeditions, they're usually themed around whatever the update is. So this expedition is themed around having a frigate. Instead of starting on a planet, you start on a frigate, and you've got your own crew, and you're basically trying to repair it because it's a little damaged. And you're trying to work your way through like this path that they've set out for you. And by completing each segment, you're unlocking cosmetic stuff for your character that is then permanent for playing in the game. So, after the expedition is over and you go and you're playing your normal character that you would play, or starting a new character, you have access to all of these cool cosmetic stuff that you can throw on your character. And now that it is a fully multiplayer game, and you go to a thing called the Anomaly, I'm not going to spoil what that is, but it's basically a place where you're going to be able to see a bunch of other players, and then suddenly they can see you and be like, oh, he got that cool thing. Or if maybe you've been doing expeditions since they first started and you have all these cool cosmetic stuff. Now you're one of those people on the Anomaly that when other players see you, they go, oh, that thing is really cool. I wonder where he got it. And maybe they even ask you, hey, where did you get that? And you go, oh, it was from so-and-so expedition. You're like, damn it, I can't get that anymore, because they're not rerunning these. And I love that kind of stuff. I love the exclusivity to that. It's the same reason why I like Diablo 3 seasonal rewards and whatnot, or just like any kind of system like that in games that come in. I like coming back to games, having a reason to come back to them, because I play a variety of different games. I don't usually just stick to one. It's never really been my thing, because whether I'm like, video game ADD or not, I like jumping around, and not just a single genre either. I play all sorts of different stuff, whether it be shooters or strategy games or puzzle games or horror games, like whatever it is that interests me, I jump in and play it. No questions asked. It's just one of those things. So to be able to have a game like this that I could jump into when an expedition pops up is just fun and exciting, and is awesome, because I find this game so relaxing. Like, preparing to move and everything. I've been really tired. Plus, I'm not getting a lot of sleep because I'm working so much. But when I've jumped into this game and I'm sitting there playing, and the nice like synthwave music is going, and you're just on a planet and you're just digging stuff up, and you're going back to the space station, and you're dropping stuff off, and you're doing some missions, and you're discovering new stuff, but it's that like really nice, relaxing music in the background. I'll tell you what, I have straight up fallen asleep at my desk playing this game, and that's not a bad thing, because I actually really enjoy that like relaxation, the wind down, and then being able to like just get up, make sure my game has like saved recently, and then go to bed. That's really nice. I like that. But preparing for this video, there's been a couple moments where I'm just like nodding off at my desk, in a good way, not in because I'm bored, but just because I love this game so much. It is relaxing. It scratches an itch for me that I just don't get with many other games that I play. But I am curious, like this update, the expedition update, or not the, sorry, the the endurance update is the update that has made the tipping point for me of being like, there's this really cool game that keeps getting cooler and cooler updates, and I'm constantly intrigued going, I want to play this game more, to being, oh, this is a game that I'm now suddenly going to jump into a lot. Like, for you, what is that tipping point? Has it happened, or is it going to happen? Do you have a tipping point with this game? Do you have a tipping point with any game like this, or any game in general that you keep an eye on? Maybe it's like Fall Guys or something, where you're just waiting for something to be introduced for it to pull you in. I think most people do, and that's a fascinating thing in a world where we have video games that are updated on a consistent basis. Most games are games as a service unless they're exclusively launched as like a single player game. You know, God of War Ragnarok is going to be a single player game, and you're going to go through the story and you're going to enjoy it, and it's going to be fun. But in 3 years' time, you're not expecting to come back and have that game have like 50 different updates, and suddenly there's a bunch of new stuff, and you're just going to start over from the beginning and experience a very different kind of experience. Whereas with No Man's Sky, if you jumped in at launch and you're like, oh, this isn't for me, and then you jump in now, you know, you're going to be blown away that it is such a different game, and it's such a better game for it. It is a weird time to live as far as game design is concerned, and how products are shipped and updated and maintained, because you can launch a game in a way that people don't like, whether it be monetization or gameplay or a myriad of other issues. And in 2 years' time or less, that game actually might be just what you were looking for, just because they've updated it a couple times. I fully expect Diablo Immortal to have some kind of turnaround as far as the monetization is concerned, and people are going to jump in and enjoy their time with that. That game may never be for you, and that's totally fine, right? It's okay for a game to just not be for you, but the point still stands that games are constantly evolving even after they launch. And I think that this is one of those perfect examples that people constantly turn back to and say, you know, oh, this game launched in a bad state, but you know, X game launched in a bad state, but hold on, because it might do a No Man's Sky. It might update and get really good in a short amount of time, or even just over the course of like 5 years, it might update and get a bunch of cool stuff for it. You know, honestly, I think Cyberpunk 2077 has already done this. If you've been paying attention, maybe the tipping point for that game has not come for you yet. And honestly, maybe the tipping point is still to come. Again, what would the tipping point be for you? I don't know. It's kind of individual, and it's going to be different for each person, obviously. But when the game launched, it wasn't in a great state, it had performance issues, and for a lot of people, it just wasn't what they were expecting. Sound familiar? Because that's what No Man's Sky was. But this last year, it's gotten several updates, and it's just cruising right along, and it's gotten really good. And if you've missed out on that game because of, you know, reason A, B, C, or D, it's possible that that game is now worth it to you, especially because just like every other CD Projekt Red game, like The Witcher 3, it just goes on sale for just basically scrap, and you could go pick it up for next to nothing and enjoy a really good RPG for you know, an immense amount of hours, and not have to, you know, worry about investing a bunch of money into it. So yeah, it's a fascinating thing, these games that launch and get updates, and it's cool to see a team be, you know, humble enough to listen to feedback and receptive enough to take that feedback and turn it into a reality, or to, you know, their own version of what people think might be cool, and that, you know, the developers take that and go, well, I like that idea, but it could be better if it is this, and then they implemented it, and now you have an even better game. And I love this concept. To some, I think it is exhausting to look at your game list and be like, oh, this game has gotten another update. Oh, goody. Like, I don't have time to play any of the games I already have. How am I going to jump in and play No Man's Sky that's, you know, received 50 billion updates, it seemed. Well, again, that boils down to when is the time right for you? What is going to be the thing that brings you back to a specific game? You know, some people have this kind of thing with MMOs. World of Warcraft tends to do this to a lot of people, where they drop out for an expansion or two, and then they come back and they go, this is incredible. And then they drop out in the next expansion because it's not as good as the one that they just played. MMOs are notorious for this in general, but, you know, World of Warcraft tends to be a good example because it's got a large sample size, we'll say. But, you know, for games like this, for No Man's Sky, not everybody is into these crafting, exploration, survival games. Or sci-fi games, for that matter. Maybe No Man's Sky will never be your thing because you tend to like more fantasy or like Eastern European fantasy. Like you're going to jump into Valheim more often than you are ever going to jump into No Man's Sky because you don't like the aesthetic between the two games. You know, you prefer the Valheim structure and how that looks. I totally get it and understand, but what of those games are you overlooking because you haven't considered what your tipping point is? If you haven't already, I do encourage you to go jump into No Man's Sky for this particular update and see what it's like. Just, you know, make a new character and play if you're so inclined to try the expedition, but that's going to be kind of, I actually do recommend playing just the standard game for a little bit to kind of catch yourself back up, or if you've never played before, get the hang of it before jumping into the expedition, because it does assume a bit of experience within the game. So, you know, they tend to overlook some of the more basic tutorial stuff because they expect you to have played the basic part of the game, like, you know, at least once or twice. So I do encourage you to jump in, but, you know, make a new character and re-experience it for a little bit, and then jump into the expedition if you want to see the stuff specific to endurance. Otherwise, you could just hope for, I don't know, just coming across the frigate in a normal gameplay scenario and it just being given to you, which is something that has happened to me before, where like the NPC's like, thank you for saving me from one pirate ship that was really easy to kill. I'm so glad that you did that. Here's my giant frigate. And it's really cool when that kind of stuff happens. You're like, oh, I don't mind if I do. I like just started playing this game like several hours ago, and now I own a frigate. It completely changes the trajectory of, you know, what you're doing in the game. But it is really fun and exciting when those exploratory moments happen. With that being said, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what your tipping point is on this game or any others that you may be keeping an eye on, or maybe ones that you haven't even considered yet. And also, if you want to see more No Man's Sky stuff, let me know in the comments as well, because I really like this game and I wouldn't mind doing more videos of it. But with that being said, thank you very much for watching, and we shall see you all next time.